Welcome back to another week of recreating vintage lunches, where we are taking the Women's World magazine cookbook from 1926, the Salads and Sandwiches cookbook, and we are recreating some of those salads and sandwiches every week. This week we are keeping in the theme of sweet sandwiches, and we're going to go with a honey nut sandwich, but we are going to try that with a ham and vegetable salad. Now, that ham and vegetable salad requires a boiled dressing. It's been a little while since we've made one, so we're going to try one today, and I will include that in the video here. Now, the boiled dressing that we're going to make today is out of the cookbook. You know, the recipe that I insisted was not in the cookbook, that they didn't have a boiled dressing recipe in the cookbook, and they actually did. We're gonna try that one today. I'm gonna go ahead and put my hair up, and you can join me over here as we start that boiled dressing for the ham salad. With this boiled dressing recipe, I decided to cut it in half because I know I'm not going to use the whole thing, so hopefully it'll come out okay. It called for, that was a little noisy. It called for 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. So we have 1 tablespoon and a half a cup of cold water. We have a 1/4 cup here. So we're going to mix that in the double boiler. Now, everything was pretty easy to cut in half. The one thing that will be a little difficult is the egg yolk. It calls for 1 egg yolk, so we need to do half. Now, I would normally be like, I don't know, I guess I'll just guesstimate it, which is totally valid. I think that's something they would have done back then, just kind of guess, or they would have been like, okay, I need 1 egg yolk, so I'll make the whole recipe. But I just weighed it, and I believe it was 18 grams. So I'm gonna do 9 grams of egg yolk and hope that I get it right that way. So I'm just gonna let this cook in this double boiler for a little bit, and I'll be back when it is ready to take it off the fire and start whisking everything else in. It's just about as transparent and as thick as it's going to get, so I think we'll take it off of the fire now. Now it's time to beat in that egg yolk, and like we said, we're going to do about a half of it. It's been beaten already. That going in there. And this is, I got 10 grams in there, not 9, but I think that's quite okay. I don't think 1 gram is going to make or break us here. It's a really pretty color. It kind of looks like lemon custard right now. Now we're going to slowly drizzle and beat in this oil here. And we have a half a cup because we have halved it. If you were with us before in the 52 Sunday dinners, this was the really hard part for me, and we ended up trying quite a few different mayonnaise recipes and using immersion blenders, which turned out to be the easiest and most effective way. Now, obviously, they did not have immersion blenders in 1926, and so they would not have been doing that with these recipes, but I know a lot of people, when they're making homemade mayonnaise and they're trying it with a whisk, it's really hard to get the oil to get into or to incorporate into the mayonnaise or the boiled dressing, and it's also hard not to break it. So just if you're doing this at home and you're not sure, or you have not had success at home and you want to make your own mayo, I would highly suggest trying it with an immersion blender. Now it's time for the lemon juice, the salt, and the paprika. It also says you can add a little bit of dry or prepared mustard if you like. So I combined some dry mustard with the paprika for when we mix it in there, because I don't know, you can't go wrong with a little mustard. I like a little extra of that kind of flavor, that acid. It also says you can add more lemon juice, which I probably will do because I like things a little bit more acidic. I really like lemon juice. I prefer that kind of, vinegar, lemon, acid type flavor. I think it just brightens things up. And if we're going to be adding it to a ham salad, I think you could certainly use some brightening up of a ham salad. I don't smell a ton of lemon in there, and I like to smell my lemon, so we're going to add probably a little bit more after this is done. A little bit of salt here. Mustard and paprika. I keep forgetting about audio every time I record these until I start editing, and I'm like, oh crap, that would have been a really good time to have my microphone on. So now it probably seems like the audio has changed. It probably sounds different from the introduction and when we made this. That's because I actually just remembered to put this microphone on. Hopefully it'll sound a lot better for the rest of this video. But let's try out this boiled dressing. It's cooled down a little bit. I added probably triple the amount of lemon juice to this. I tasted it a little bit before and I put the original recipe in. I didn't taste enough of an acid or, you know, like a brightness out of it. It felt pretty heavy. So I just kind of dumped in a bit more. I can smell some more lemon on it. Not bad. I definitely taste the lemon. I can't say this is my favorite one that we have made, but it is not terrible, and the addition of that lemon is pretty good for me. I do not like mayonnaise. Most of you know that already, but if given the choice, I am a Miracle Whip girl because I like the tangy zip. What can you do? We're gonna start with our salad. So we're going with the ham salad, and just like the boiled dressing, I'm going to cut this salad in about half because quite honestly, I don't foresee myself probably eating a full recipe with 1 pound of cold boiled ham. So I bought a slice of ham that is about a pound. It's just shy of a pound. So we're gonna cut that in half. We're gonna chop up half of this ham steak here, and everything else will be kind of cut in half as well. With the heads of celery, I am trying to, I guess or determine, did they mean stalks? Did they mean whole heads of celery? Like, because this is probably about a half a head, and it was a lot bigger before I cut it down and used some of the celery. So did they mean like 6 times this amount of celery compared to, here is about a pound of ham, like 6 of these compared to this? That's insane. Absolutely insane. And like, how many people are you feeding with probably 6 of these? And how much do you like celery? I don't know. Do you guys, when I eat celery, too much of it, I think we've talked about this before. The inside of my mouth, like I get this weird feeling, this numbing kind of maybe in my mouth. It feels strange. So to eat that much celery in one setting, absolutely not. I like celery, but not that much. So we are going to guess that back then the produce wasn't as big. Maybe this would be 1.5. I hope it would be, because that's what we're going with for this, because that just seems like a crazy amount of celery. The other thing, it said peppers, sweet green pepper to chop up, or pimentos. And I don't know, I kind of like the idea of pimentos and maraschino cherries, ham salad, deviled ham. Those sort of things are not as popular now as they were back then. And it just feels very vintage-esque, antique-esque to be including those in the recipe. So we're gonna go with pimentos. It also said it could be served on a bed of lettuce or with pickled beets. And we do a lot on a bed of lettuce. I have plenty of lettuce here, but you know I love beets. It's my favorite vegetable. And so we went with canned pickled beets, and I have whole pickled beets and I have shoestring pickled beets. I don't think I have any sliced pickled beets. I could take these whole ones and slice them up, or I could use these pickled shoestring beets. Well, I don't know. Let's get into preparing the rest of this, and then I'll kind of think about how I want it to look once we're done with that. I'm just gonna cut this right in half, and it says to chop it fine. How fine? I don't know. So I'm just gonna start cutting it. We will get it as chopped as finely as I suppose we deem is appropriate. And does this one specify? No, there's one of them that specifies to, I believe, chop fine, but don't put through a meat grinder, something along those lines. I may be mixing a few up, but I know we want it just chopped fine, not quite ground or pasted or anything like that. So let's get this chopped up. I'll be right back when this is all finished chopping. We have our ham chopped fine there. And now we need, I think it said half a dozen sour pickles. So 3, since we're cutting this in half, 3 small sour pickles. I don't know what they mean by small, but this seems like a decent amount here. I'm assuming sour or dill pickles, not sweet pickles, not gherkins, not bread and butter pickles. So we're going with dill, and then about this much celery. These are my best guesses as to how that's going to turn out correctly. We're gonna chop these nice and fine. Now would be a nice time for a food chopper. I've seen different things from back in the day with those, they have the cool wood red handles. They look really neat. And I don't know what year they're from, but they had some that looked to be food choppers. You kind of slapped it down. It had a little spring in there and some blades, zigzaggy blades. It seemed to be kind of maybe an early food chopper. I don't know how fine it would have chopped them or shredded or however it would have done it, but okay. Again, this will take a while. I'll be back. Pickles in. Now to chop up the celery. Probably not using the right knife, but I just didn't want to dirty another one. Usually I would use my chef's knife for this, but I was already using this one. And we have enough dishes to do. Just kidding. That was taking way too long with that serrated knife, so we went back to the chef's knife because I didn't want to sit here for like 25 minutes chopping up little pieces of celery, so I lied and we're going to the chef's knife. Our celery is chopped up in there. We have a half a cup of those peas. So it said either boiled, seasoned, small peas or sweet peas, I believe, or a small can. So we used a can and I did a half a cup because it's half. And then we did pimentos like I mentioned before. Everything is in there, and now it says to mix it with a boiled dressing. We have our boiled dressing that we made earlier. I don't know how much to put in there. I guess I will start and just kind of fold it in, and then we'll see if we need more after that. We're putting that much in there. How much is that much? That is a lovely question. All right, there we go. Probably gonna need more than that. You can see us just kind of folding it in. One of the very first videos I did for YouTube on that 52 Sunday Dinners project, the recipe called for folding something in there, and I tried to make a reference to the show Schitt's Creek. And any of you who watched that show knew what I was talking about, but several people lost their absolute minds and in fact, I got a call or an email or a text from Nani, and she was a little bit horrified, thinking I was actually saying I didn't know what fold meant or how to fold something in. So just as a warning to all, when you're putting things out, not everyone is going to get your humor or your references. They may be taking you quite literally. This looks like, I don't know, that looks wet enough to me. What do you think? You feel like that's enough boiled dressing? I think it is. It's supposed to be a salad, a ham and vegetable salad, so maybe not, is it like a ham salad, like ham salad sandwich, or chicken salad, egg salad, or is it ham salad like a grilled chicken salad or something where you don't need as much dressing? I don't know, I think we're gonna stick with that, and that looks good enough for me. I also thought when I was picturing the beets originally, I was picturing the beets going down first, because instead of a bed of lettuce, I was just imagining substituting them so they would go exactly where the beets would go, or I mean exactly where the lettuce would go. But it says to garnish it. So my assumption is we put this on top of the plate and then we garnish it so the beets are gonna go on top. And I also like that even better the beets even better than the lettuce, just for a little extra color, a little extra pop. There is a lot of green already, and there is some pink with the ham and some red, pink with the pimentos, but I think just a little extra pink or purple or red, whatever you want to call a beet, will look pretty nice on top of that. And based on the chopped upness of this, I know it says sliced beets, but we're going to go with the shredded. And if that is a problem for you, that is fine. I totally understand. Do us a favor, you make it with the sliced beets and show us how much better it looks with those, and then we can compare. For this sandwich, it indicates that we can use any type of nut that we want. And I think we've used walnuts and peanuts quite a bit. So I think this time I'm gonna go with pecans. I love them, they're one of my favorites. And last week's video, we were just in South Carolina. So, you know, Georgia, South Carolina, that's a pretty popular place for pecans. So we're gonna go ahead and go with that for this one. And as I was reading it, you're supposed to mix it with honey, and I thought, well, which honey do I want to use? Because I have a lot of different honeys, and I don't know how I ended up with quite so many honeys, probably because we don't have them right now. We have had bees in the past and had our own honey, and I think I just have such a huge appreciation for it. Somehow I have ended up with a huge collection, so I'll just show you that real quick. We have Mike's Hot Honey. We have some honey. I believe this is probably our honey that's in that container. I have some Manuka honey. I have some actual like honeycomb, honey in the comb there. We have just plain old honey, and I think this might be honey that's infused with maybe chili powder or something. And then this is just our little coffee bar, which has turned into a tea bar and coffee and honey and mugs and, you know, whatever else we put in there. But yeah, that's just what I'm using right now. That's not the rest of my honey collection. That's just what is out and open. So one may say I have a little bit of a problem with it. I don't think it's a problem because honey never expires. I think this is a fabulous collection. I realize I never actually said which honey we'll be using, so it'll be just this one, a plain old honey. And with the pecans, it says to chop them up, and I thought, well, why don't we try and crush them up a little with this mortar and pestle? Because I haven't tried doing that before, and it's probably wrong, but you know what? We won't know until we try. Hopefully we don't end up with ground pecans in here. That kind of seems like it's getting a little more pushed together and ground and pasted than it is chopped, so I think this was definitely the wrong move. I guess we'll dump it out and see how it looks though. What do you think? Is that medium fine enough? I think it looks all right. Maybe it could be a little bit finer than this, but you know, maybe we want a little more or extra crunch in there, so let's go with that. We want just enough honey for a paste. I don't know how much that is either, but let's just squeeze the honey in there. Okay, that doesn't seem quite pasty enough. Let's add a little bit more. I realize you can't quite see how much is going in there, but suffice it to say it's not a ton because there wasn't much left in this before. So I might have to get another thing of honey, and it will be just plain old honey. No flavor, no comb, no anything else. It'll just be pure honey. I ended up not needing to open up a new honey. I opened up the honey and then just scraped out what was left in the top of the lid and just kind of let the rest of it pour out from the neck. I don't know about you guys, but there still, to me, is, you know, a decent amount of like honey film left on this. And just as they would have in the old days, I don't want to waste anything. So what I'll probably do with this, it's not relevant to the recipe at all, but just saying, probably later this evening when I have a cup of tea, once the water has cooled down a little bit, I'll probably pour some warm-ish, like oh no, I think I have honey on me. Oh, I think it's, oh no, the honey got on the dress. How disappointing. I needed to have my apron up over this, but I just thought that this monogram was too cute to be covered up, so I didn't put it up there, and now I got honey on the dress. This is why you need to have an apron, and you need the apron to go over the top, or you need to not wear a dress that you like when you're cooking. Lesson learned. Now what was I talking about before I go wipe some of this off? Oh, tea. I'm gonna make tea. I'm gonna pour it in there, swish it around, get all the honey film off of there, and then squeeze it into my tea to sweeten it a little bit and not to waste that precious honey film that's in there. All right, hold on, I gotta go clean out this dress now. All right, crisis averted, at least this one crisis averted. I'm sure I will not leave the rest of the video unscathed. Something else will get on this outfit, which, now that I'm saying it, why haven't I pulled this back up over? And it's on inside out because I thought the front of this, the little flowers, they were kind of hand painted, puff painted on here. I thought they were really pretty. So I kept it, you know, flipped up or flipped down so that you could see it. You could see that and the belt and the monogram, but now we're going inside out. The bread that I'm using this time, normally I use the gluten-free char, I think, in most of the videos that we've done, but I just had a trip to Trader Joe's, which is one of my favorite places to get groceries. They just have such cool things. Unfortunately, they are nowhere near where I live, so we only get to go every once in a while. It's usually on the way somewhere else. But I think that one in Pittsburgh might be the closest one, or the one we went to was in Penn State. We were on our way home from Hershey, but I have the Trader Joe's gluten-free white bread. I've not tried their breads before. I've had their bagels, and I think for a gluten-free bagel, they're pretty darn good. The bread, I'm hoping, is a pretty good comparison. Obviously not gonna be as good as regular bread, but like we said before, we gotta do what we gotta do. Now onto the bread is to be spread dairy butter, nut butter, or peanut butter mixed with a little bit of cream, I believe. And I don't know what the difference between peanut butter and nut butter was back then. Was it different nuts, or are they just referring to straight up peanut butter without the cream? I'm not really sure. Let's get our butter on there. We're gonna do it on both sides. And as we've mentioned before, and some of you have pointed out too, the butter or nut butter may have been to flavor or moisten, but it also may have been to prevent the bread from becoming soggy, especially if someone like the husband or the children were taking these sandwiches to school or to work with them, and they would be sitting there for a while. Back in the day, a lot of children used to come home for lunch from school. I know even like in the 30s, 40s, 50s, they still came home for lunch, maybe even 60s and 70s, depending on how close you lived to school. I know when I was in school, that was definitely not an option. Back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, you were not going home for lunch. But you know, I don't know about that for some of these. I'm sure maybe in city schools you could, probably in more rural areas, that would probably be a problem. If you went home for lunch during school, tell me, if you lived in an area where some kids maybe were too far away to do that, did you go to someone else's house for lunch? Did you go, and I know you guys didn't go to school in the 1920s, probably more in the 50s, 60s, 70s, some of you maybe in the 80s and 90s like me. If you lived close by to the school and could go home but had friends who couldn't, did you bring friends home for lunch? Did your moms feed friends during that lunchtime? I guess I've never thought about that until we're now talking about it, but now I'm very curious about that and would love to know a little bit more about everybody's lunchtime experiences from school. Back onto the sandwich, we are going to put our nuts onto here, and it said to make a paste, enough to make a paste like we talked about before, and now I am thinking, based on that description of a paste, I wonder if we should have chopped our pecans a little bit more fine. We're too late to do it again, so we're just gonna go with what we have. I'm just trying to spread it to the edges so our edges have a good flavor too. Get a little bit of all of that nut and honey in every bite, because we don't want a plain old boring bite, now do we? And there we are, a honey nut sandwich. Oh, this smells fabulous. I'm going to enjoy this, I think. Before we plate up the salad, let's just have a moment for this adorable bubble plate. It's separated. Now I know the middle is supposed to be the main course, and then these are supposed to be your sides for this bowl, but the salad is probably a little bit bigger and we want to display it pretty. And we have 2 halves of a sandwich, so that's what we're gonna go with. All right. Do our salad there. Oh, that is pretty juicy. Let's get a few of those shoestring beets on there. It's a nice little garnish. Okay, what do you think? How's it look? Let's get to trying this. I'm gonna start with the salad and then go to the sandwich, because although last week, you know, the expectation was that the chocolate sandwich would be much sweeter than the carrot salad, we were surprised, or at least maybe you guys weren't. I was surprised. I'm gonna call it we so that it's your fault too. The sandwich was not very sweet at all. It was actually a lot more bitter than what I expected. It was good, but it was not sweet. But this time with that honey, we know that this is going to be much sweeter than what this vegetable ham salad is. It smells good. I can smell all the different things in here. I smell the peas primarily, and maybe that's just because I have quite a few peas there. Let's get a bite that doesn't have so many peas, see if I smell something else. Yeah, it smells pretty good overall. Let's give it a little bite without the beets and then with the beets. That is very interesting. There are a lot of different textures going on. So you have the very kind of soft and squishing peas, you have the crunch of the celery, and then the ham is almost in the middle with, there's some resistance to chewing through it, but not as much as with the celery. There's a lot of different flavors in there as well. I can say I really, with all the, like the tang of the pickle and the pimento, and then the saltiness of the ham and some of all these other flavors in there, you don't taste the boiled dressing as strong as what I expected to. And maybe we really didn't need as much lemon as what I put in there with all these different flavors. Let's try it with the pickled beets and see how that tang kind of adds to it. Now I know the beets are supposed to just be a garnish, so there's probably not going to be a ton of them, but let's just see. Oh, that beet is really nice in there. There is a nice, that like tang with the pickled part of it. And then there's a little bit of sweetness in there as well. And I don't taste the earthiness quite as much. I think maybe the peas kind of pick that up and maybe overpower it a little bit. But overall, this is not bad at all. Let's try our honey nut sandwiches. And I don't know if you can see this because the salad might be in the way. Let's move that out of the way for you. If you can see, the honey is just kind of dripping out of this sandwich here. Oh yeah, all I smell is honey in this. Now that is tasty. I really like that we went with dairy butter, because I think the flavor of the butter and the honey together, I mean honey butter, come on now, and honey nut butter, all really, really good complementary flavors. They all go together well. This is very sweet. It's certainly very sweet. I think the honey and actually the butter even are overpowering the flavor of the pecans a little bit, which surprised me. And I guess it shouldn't have, because it's not like nuts have a super strong flavor profile. When they're mixed in with other things, a lot of times you taste the other things and you kind of just feel the crunch. But a lot of times with walnuts or pecans, I get a little bit of like a bitterness or something in there. And I'm not quite getting it with this. I think just the honey and the butter kind of cover that up and overpower it. I talked about maybe I hadn't chopped up those pecans well enough. It was supposed to be a paste and maybe not quite chunks of pecans and honey. And I have two thoughts there. First, maybe the fact that we didn't chop them up so finely and didn't make quite as much of a paste. Maybe that's why it's dripping out a little bit more. But also the texture of that, the crunching and the chewing through, I think it is kind of a nice complement, especially to the salad. The salad's crunchy, but also soft. This sandwich also has some crunchy and soft elements to it. I think I really like that we didn't chop it up to where it is quite a paste, but this is fantastic. If you guys liked what you saw today, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss another vintage cooking video. And join us next week where I think I'm gonna go with maybe some egg and ham sandwiches. Ham and egg sandwiches. Ham and egg sounds much better. And I haven't quite decided which salad we're gonna lean towards. So if you'd like to know, join us next Friday and I will reveal that. Bye guys.